Friday practice at Zandvoort is over and the fastest driver of the day was George Russell in the Mercedes, as both Mercedes and McLaren brought upgrades to Zandvoort. But what did we learn? Well, in today's video I am going to be doing a data analysis from practice. If you enjoy the video then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now, let's get into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top teams later on, so please do stick around for that. Yep, F1 is back, and we got to see all of the tyres today, as FP1 started off in full wet conditions, as we saw the drivers really struggling for grip as they were trying to get back up to speed. It was actually good to see plenty of running as well on those full wet tyres. The rain then went away, and we got to see plenty of running on the intermediates, before the end of the session where we saw some dry running on the soft tyres and also the medium tyres for Ferrari. And you can see here how the circuit conditions changed during that first practice session when you look at the time set by George Russell in FP1. On the full wet tyres, Russell was 13 seconds slower than he was on the soft tyres, which just goes to show you how much less grip there was around this tight and twisty circuit. I just wanted to show this because we don't usually get to see full wets versus softs in one practice session. Now though, let's compare the fastest laps from FP1 and FP2 to see how the circuit came towards the drivers as FP1 dried out and FP2 was a fully dry session. When you look at these two laps, you can see immediately how much faster FP2 was with a fully dry circuit. At the bank corners of turn 2, 3 and 4, you can see in FP2, Russell just carries a lot more speed. This is because these corners require great grip and traction from the car, and the drier circuit will obviously provide more grip. Through this section alone, Russell gains 0.4 of a second over the FP1 lap. Then at the very high speed turn 7 corner here, Russell carries 12 km/h more at the apex. The next area where Russell gains a large chunk of time is at turn 9 and turn 10 at the hairpin. The reason for this is because in FP1 it was the wettest part of the track, so naturally it was the slowest part of the track. Through here Russell gained half a second. Overall, between the two lap times, the gain was 1.6 seconds, which is not actually as much as I would have expected if I'm completely honest. So we've seen how the times from FP1 and FP2 compared, but let's now take a look at the top speeds that the teams are able to reach, so we can possibly see who is looking fast in a straight line, and who might just be having things turned down a little bit more so far. And when you look at these top speeds, there is a couple of interesting things. As per usual, the Haas car was the fastest car in a straight line, as they managed to reach a top speed of 329 km/h. Williams though were by quite some distance the slowest cars in a straight line, as they were only reaching 319 km/h. This tells me that Williams probably have a lot more left in the locker, and we're probably going to see that tomorrow and of course when it comes to the Grand Prix. When it comes to the front runners though, Mercedes were the fastest cars in a straight line at the front as they reached 328 km/h, possibly telling me that Mercedes might have had things turned up slightly more than their rivals, because usually Mercedes are not the fastest cars in a straight line. So we've seen the top speeds, but what about the midfield and who's looking good? Well, it's actually incredibly difficult to say at the minute because the midfield is looking closer than ever. But the fastest car and driver in the midfield today was the Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso. And it looks like this could be a good circuit for Aston Martin. Stroll was, as ever, a couple of tenths behind Alonso, but it has to be said, between Alonso, Tsunoda and Kevin Magnussen, there was just about 1/10 of a second, showing once again how tight that midfield battle is. And qualifying is going to be about who can get the best lap in at the best conditions if it is a wet session. I just want to say that if you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and let's talk about Mercedes. For Mercedes, it was a fantastic day as they were first and third, and it looks like they're continuing to build on what has been a very strong last couple of races, as George Russell was the fastest driver of the day and Lewis Hamilton was third fastest. The car is looking very hooked up around this circuit, and for Mercedes in a way, they don't really want it to rain tomorrow as the car is currently looking so strong. Let's now take a look at the laps between Russell and Hamilton so we can see just how Russell edged out his teammate. And when you look at these two laps, there's actually a very small amount between them and the drivers are clearly maximising their car. There is actually next to nothing between them for most of the lap. The area where Russell starts to get an advantage over his teammates is towards the end of the lap, heading into those last couple of corners. Russell gets a good exit from the chicane, and then heading into those final couple of corners, he carries a little bit more speed. Honestly, until then, it was almost a dead heat between the two Mercedes drivers. In qualifying tomorrow, it will be interesting to see if they can keep this pace up in what is looking like a wet session. For Ferrari, the return to F1 has not been a great one. In FP1, they didn't exactly set the world on fire as they opted to run the mediums when it dried up instead of the softs, and then in FP2, it was just bad. Sainz had a gearbox issue, which meant that he finished down in 19th place, and teammate Charles Leclerc was only 9th fastest. And rather disappointingly for Charles Leclerc, he was over 7/10 of a second off of George Russell, around a lap that is only 7 seconds long. For Ferrari, this is bad. They are currently behind the fastest Aston Martin, Haas and VCarb. Leclerc did do an extra lap on those softs, so he didn't have the best of the tyres, but still, it's not great. Let's now compare the times of Leclerc to Russell, so we can see how Ferrari are just lacking pace. And when you look at these two laps, the Ferrari is just clearly struggling. Through turn 2 and turn 3, Leclerc is losing a couple of tenths to Mercedes. He does gain that back at the next corner, but then going into turn 7, you can see here he is clearly lacking confidence in the car, as he is not able to carry that speed in the high-speed corners. And by the exit of turn 11, Leclerc is 8 tenths behind George Russell. He does gain back a tiny bit at the end, but it's nowhere near enough. Ferrari have a lot of work to do this weekend, and I think it is very obvious that they are the 4th fastest car, and they are at risk of being the 5th fastest team. They will be banking on a wet qualifying to try and do something different to try and move forward, because currently they don't have the pace. For McLaren, they had a very solid day as Piastri was 2nd and Norris was 4th fastest, and McLaren are looking very strong once again. This is a circuit where I think we should see them at their best. The circuit is tight and twisty, and in the slow speeds they are very, very strong, as we have seen in the recent past. There is little to tell between them as well, as they are getting closer and closer in terms of performance and pace. Let's now compare the times of the two drivers, and when you look at these laps, actually Norris for most of the lap was the faster driver. He was stronger through the middle part of the lap. Here he was later on the brakes and he carried a little bit more speed as well. In fact, at one point Norris was 2 tenths ahead of Piastri. However, going into those final couple of corners, it looks like Norris makes a crucial mistake, and once that mistake is made, he loses all of the advantage that he had. And that actually cost him 3 tenths of a second, and really that cost him top spot for today. For McLaren though, they are looking very, very strong. If they can put it together, there's no reason why McLaren will not be the fastest car this weekend. They just need to put that lap together, especially if it is a tricky qualifying session. And finally, for Red Bull, it was another day where it looks like their time at the top is coming to an end. Verstappen and Perez both made a few errors during their laps in practice, and it looked like they're gonna be the 3rd fastest car this weekend. Luckily, in a way for them, it's not guaranteed that McLaren will be ahead of Mercedes, which will be crucial for the team's championship. Let's now compare the times of Verstappen to Piastri so we can see how Verstappen lost out against his team's closest rivals, McLaren. When you look at these two laps, it's pretty clear where Red Bull lost the time. Through the high-speed turn 7, Verstappen is on another planet as he carries 8 km/h more at the apex, and he just looks phenomenal through that section. But then at the slow speed corners that come right after this, Verstappen's advantage bleeds away as the Red Bull is still struggling in the slow speed corners, and through those tight corners he is losing that time where he also needs to ride the curbs. At the exit of the tight chicane alone, Verstappen loses 0.2 of a second, and there the damage is done. For qualifying tomorrow, if it is wet, I can see Verstappen putting in one of those masterful laps. But if it does end up being dry, then I do worry he will not be any higher than 3rd place. So what are my predictions for the Dutch Grand Prix when it comes to qualifying? Well, in P5, I'm going to go for Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. P4 will be Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. P3 will be George Russell in the Mercedes. P2 will be Lando Norris in the McLaren. And I'm going to go for an Oscar Piastri pole position. But those are my thoughts. The question is, what do you guys think will happen? In the comment section down below, please do let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.